He was outside. He hailed a taxi and quickly made his way to the designated meeting place. As he arrived, he scanned the area cautiously, making sure he wasn't being followed. Spotting a familiar figure, he approached cautiously, ready for any confrontation. Sonoda and his associates were waiting for him, their expressions a mix of impatience and menace. Hayato tensed, preparing himself for the worst as he stepped forward to confront them. Sonoda wasted no time in getting to the point, demanding the return of the stolen items. Hayato remained calm, his mind racing as he formulated a plan. He couldn't afford to let Sonoda and his cronies get their hands on the items he had acquired. With a steely resolve, he refused to comply with Sonoda's demands, knowing that giving in would only embolden them further. Sensing the tension escalating, Hayato braced himself for a confrontation. But before things could escalate further, a sudden commotion erupted nearby, drawing everyone's attention. Hayato seized the opportunity, slipping away unnoticed in the chaos. As he made his escape, he felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. Despite narrowly evading capture, he knew that his troubles were far from over. With Sonoda and his associates hot on his trail, he would need to stay one step ahead if he hoped to survive. Determined to outwit his pursuers, Hayato vanished into the bustling city streets, disappearing into the anonymity of the crowd. With each step, he moved further away from danger, plotting his next move carefully as he navigated the perilous world of the Final Kingdom. He arrived at his new residence. The men informed him that the installation of his new VR system was complete. Grateful for their efforts, he thanked them, aware of the fees for the new VR system and the payment Teshuma had taken on his finances. Additionally, the last Badlander set he had acquired didn't boast impressive stats, making it difficult to sell. Nevertheless, he found solace in knowing that after selling everything and settling his debts, he would still have 300,000 credits. Without hesitation, he entered his new VR system, eager to verify if the previous incident had truly been his fault. Venturing into the El Dorado areas, a class dungeon known as the Forgotten Dragon Nest, he concealed himself behind massive stones, speculating whether anyone else was present. Contemplating the possibility of someone employing a stealth spell, he activated his concealment detection, revealing that there was indeed no one else nearby. Emerging from his hiding spot, he proceeded toward the center of the dungeon. Standing in the middle, he hesitated before taking a step forward. He was certain that this was the area where he had accessed the secret quest, but he wondered how he had accomplished it, and where he had seen the girl trapped inside the crystal. Curiosity piqued, the girl asked him what he was contemplating. He replied, expressing his attempt to recall where he had last encountered the girl trapped inside the crystal. The girl asked him to confirm if he recognized her, to which he replied affirmatively, albeit unable to recollect the details. Turning around to address his unseen interlocutor, he was shocked to find the girl standing right behind him. Overwhelmed, he collapsed to the ground, his gaze fixed on her as she descended and looked at him. Discovering that she was no ghost, he knelt down beside him, observing her. The girl, knowledgeable about the game and him, someone who had previously been insignificant, marked their first encounter. She asked him where he had found her, but he was lost in his thoughts, wondering if the girl in front of him was an NPC. Then he realized something strange. If the girl was an NPC, a green frame would appear to distinguish her from real players. So he wondered if she wasn't an NPC after all. The girl smiled and asked him if he was thinking about her being an NPC. Suddenly, she turned into a green fog and entered his body, leaving him surprised. He shouted in shock, and when the fog disappeared, he touched his body in confusion. The girl asked him if he still thought she was an NPC, making him look around in panic. Then he stopped, realizing something, and touched his glowing body, asking if it was her who had entered inside him. His hand lit up as the girl confirmed that he was right. He was shocked to see the girl sitting on his hand laughing. She told him that she would explain everything if he told her where he had seen her before. Later, in the rugged landscape, he asked her if she was saying that she had lost her memories. She replied yes and told him that she didn't remember anything about herself or how she ended up in the crystal. She asked him to tell her who she was. He asked her how many times he needed to repeat that he didn't know her, but she reminded him that he had said the same thing before. He opened the system, explaining to the girl that he only had a faint feeling that he had seen her somewhere. Other than that, he didn't know anything about her. As he looked at the system, he realized something was strange. He remembered activating the secret quest of the girl who lost her memories, but it had disappeared. He knew that the girl who lost her memories was currently beside him, so he wondered if it disappeared because of an NPC and why the quest had vanished. She asked him to confirm if they had indeed met somewhere before. He replied that since she was an NPC, she might have been modeled after some celebrity by the development team. This could explain why he thought he knew her. The girl hit him on the back of his head, furiously explaining that she had already told him she was not an NPC. He scratched his head in shock and asked her how she could hit him. She replied, of course, and told him that she wasn't a ghost. He threw an apple at her, but it simply passed through her and landed on the ground. He asked her why he was able to do that if she wasn't a ghost. She replied that it was because only he could touch her, making him wonder why. She sadly explained that he was the one who had awakened her, and no one else could see her or touch her except him. Hearing this, his cheeks turned red as he wondered if it meant she wouldn't let anyone touch her except him. He found it somewhat titillating. He told her that being an NPC must be tough, which made the girl furious. She shouted at him again, emphasizing that she was not an NPC. He asked her if she was a player, and she replied negatively. Meanwhile, at the top of the cliff, Kaori and a man were observing him. The man asked Kaori if he was the guy who ran off with President Mizuki's money. Kaori confirmed and expressed disbelief that Sonoda had lost 40 million alone. The man smiled and commented that hey. Yen. He demanded an explanation, and Kaori trembled as she tried to justify the failure, expressing her shock at Hayato's unexpected skills. The man's grip tightened as he reminded her of the consequences of failure, threatening her life if she didn't rectify the situation immediately. Kaori pleaded for another chance, promising to make things right. The man released her, warning her that failure wasn't an option this time. Back in the virtual world, Hayato logged out, leaving the girl alone. She called him an idiot and sadly admitted that she couldn't speak to anyone else but him. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the man was livid, confirming if the assassination had really failed. Sonoda grabbed Kaori's neck and asked her if she remembered how much she had lost, reminding her that it was about 40 million yen. He demanded an explanation, and Kaori trembled as she tried to justify the failure, expressing her shock at Hayato's unexpected skills. The man's grip tightened as he reminded her of the consequences of failure, threatening her life if she didn't rectify the situation immediately. Kaori pleaded for another chance, promising to make things right. The man released her, warning her that failure wasn't an option this time. In the tense aftermath of the failed assassination attempt, Sonoda's fury erupted like a volcano. He lashed out at Kaori, blaming her for the failure, his anger boiling over as he raised his hand to strike her. But before he could deliver the blow, a commanding voice cut through the tension, bringing a temporary calm to the room. The man at the center of the room intervened, quelling the rising storm of emotions. He reminded Sonoda that losing control wouldn't solve their problems and instructed him to release Kaori. Reluctantly, Sonoda obeyed, but not without a final warning to Kaori. As the situation settled, the man turned his attention to Kaori, questioning her about Hayato's victory over Yuzumi Shenjin. Intrigued by the unexpected turn of events, he saw potential in Hayato's unorthodox triumph. He pondered Hayato's role as a possible asset for their future plans. Meanwhile, Hayato found himself grappling with a different kind of conflict. After impulsively repaying a large sum of money, he reflected on his impulsive decision and its consequences. Despite his temporary relief at settling his debt, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease about his precarious financial situation. Contemplating his next move, Hayato realized the importance of being cautious in a world where debts and obligations loomed over him like dark clouds. As he navigated the complexities of his virtual and real-life struggles, he couldn't help but wonder about the mysterious girl who had entered his life. In another corner of the virtual world, the girl eagerly awaited Hayato's return, her anticipation palpable as she yearned for their next encounter. When Hayato finally arrived, their reunion was filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension, each harboring their own hopes and fears for the future. Propelled by her unwavering belief in their shared destiny, the girl presented Hayato with a daring proposition to conquer the infamous cursed sanctuary. Despite Hayato's initial skepticism, the girl's conviction and persuasive arguments slowly began to sway him. As they delved deeper into their discussion, Hayato grappled with conflicting emotions, torn between skepticism and a glimmer of hope. With the promise of riches and adventure beckoning, he hesitated on the precipice of a life-changing decision. Ultimately, Hayato's journey into the cursed depths of the sanctuary symbolized more than just a quest for treasure. It represented a leap of faith into the unknown, a gamble on the possibility of a brighter future amidst the shadows of uncertainty. And so, with the echoes of their shared dreams and aspirations reverberating in the air, Hayato and the girl embarked on their next adventure, ready to confront whatever challenges fate had in store for them.